Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Torie and this is Holy City Mystic. Thank you for being here. So today we're going to talk about Yod activations and what that looks like. Hopefully I can shed some light on how this would feel when you do have a Yod activation in your life. First of all, I want to bring attention to the different types of Yods. So the first type is the classical Yod, or the finger of God, and that is made up of two quincunxes and then a sextile. Now there is a golden Yod, which is made up of two biquintiles and then a quintile. And then there's an iron Yod that is made up of two sesquiquadrates and then a square. These all mean very different things, so if you would like more insights into what each of them means, you can definitely watch a video that I'm going to link below where I go into each one and kind of an idea of what they mean. Very briefly, a finger of God or a classical Yod, traditional Yod, it's Yod, it was the first Yod. That is a very psychological aspect where you are going to be driven in a certain direction, but almost this idea of being driven to madness because it never feels like you get there all the way. However, the things that you do are definitely fulfilling this destiny point for you. It's this longing or this feeling that you need to go in a certain direction, but also feeling like it's the itch that can't be scratched. Next, you have the golden Yod, and that is made up of two biquintiles and then a quintile. And with this one, there really isn't a conflict. There's just this beautiful, ethereal, creative energy that comes into play where you have both energies shooting into the apex, which is at the end of the two biquintiles. And it's almost like this intuitive spark that comes to you where it's almost like you're channeling these different aspects of your life and you're able to fulfill this beautiful, gifted destiny. And then you have the iron Yod, and this is literally nothing but conflict. It has to do with external circumstances because these are very concrete angles. You're going to have the two sesquiquadrates, which are a square and a half, and then the square at the end. And so it's a very heavy aspect. It also has a lot to do with the myth of Thor and the hammer of Thor, so it's also called that. But the idea behind that is with the hammer of Thor, Thor is the only one strong enough to actually wield it. And so if you have a hammer of Thor in your birth chart, it's very heavy and you feel like there's a lot of conflict. It's almost like trying to run underwater with steel toe boots on. Like it's a very heavy aspect. However, you are so strong from carrying this around all the time that when you run into these minor things that will absolutely cripple other people, you're able to just blast right through them. So, definitely a lot of conflict there. However, it builds so much inner strength and resilience, it can't really be viewed as a curse in any way because you're able to become such an amazing person because you have this like deep conflict in your chart. So, that being said, let's look at what a Yod activation is. If you have something conjoining a base, it's going to activate your entire Yod. It's not going to be as strong as when something actually crosses your apex. So if something is on a base, it is going to be 60 degrees away from something else and then 150 degrees away from the apex, or whatever degree and combinations make up whatever Yod that you're looking at. So just know that if something is crossing a base point, it is going to light up the Yod or bring external attention to it. When something actually crosses the apex, that is where you're going to have more of an activation type feeling when it comes to that. So what is a Yod activation? It's basically when something is aspecting the apex or bases to a lesser degree in your chart, and it makes that Yod become more at the forefront of your attention. So because of this, that Yod might be kind of dormant. It might just be, something in the background, something that is deeply a part of your personality. However, it's not something that you really feel like you need to put energy into right now. When that Yod is activated, it's going to be the only thing you can think about. It will be something that just comes up to the front and it's very big in your attention. So what this really looks like is, the moon crosses the apex of your Yod every single month, because it goes all the way around. So we don't really think of our Yods being activated every single month. However, There are also yearly aspects where the Sun, Venus, and Mercury are going to cross it once a year, every single year of your life. And that is also another type of activation. You have Mars that's going to cross it about every 2.5 years. You have Jupiter that's going to come around about every 12 years. Depending on the retrogrades that year, it might make 3 passes in a year. But it's going to be over a decade before it comes back and activates it again. Then you have the much larger, slower transits, like Saturn that's going to come around every 30 years, or Chiron that's going to come around every about 50 years. And then you have the ones that might not even happen in this lifetime. So you have Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, where you might have been born at just the right time so that those transits, as they're moving through the sky over the course of your lifetime, never really hit that apex. You might also have been born at just the right time so that all 3 of them will hit that apex at one point or another. So I like to think of the activations by each planet asking specific questions. So the moon is all about your heart and your soul. And so when the moon crosses that apex, it's more of, how do I feel about this? How am I feeling about this apex or this finger of God in my life? Is there anything I really need to do about it? And so it's kind of like that day of the month, every month, it kind of bubbles up where it's kind of like, okay, this is something that is still in my mind. This is something that I do need to put energy towards, although I feel the conflict and I feel held back and so on and so forth. When the sun crosses it, the sun is almost like a flashlight when it crosses it in the sky. And so it's like the moon, only to a much greater degree, where it's like, hey, this is something that you have in your birth chart. You cannot get away from it no matter how far you run. What are you going to do about it? How's this going to look? How is this affecting you right now? When it comes to Venus, that's going to have a lot to do with attraction. And so it's like, what luck or attraction or things am I bringing into my life here that can help me move forward in this? Mercury. What words am I using? How am I thinking about this? What am I saying about this? Is there anything in my communication that is helping or hindering this? Now with Mars, that's going to have a lot to do with energy. How much energy am I putting into this? Where is my motivation? How am I able to tackle this head on? Jupiter has to do with the philosophy behind it or the expansion of it, where it's almost like this inspirational energy that comes through and activates this Yod. Or Saturn, what is the time that I'm putting into this? What is the karma and structure? What authority am I putting into this? All of these Saturn-like aspects that are coming through because of that Saturn transit. When it comes to Chiron coming through, it's kind of like, what do I need to heal surrounding this? What is something that I can dive into my own psychology or my own inner wounding, inner child, whatever that looks like for me, that is holding me back, and I can heal this so that I can progress forward and continue to fill out this destiny point in my chart. When it comes to Uranus, it's all about thinking outside the box, sudden drastic changes. So it might be the type of thing where you've been putting a certain type of energy into this Yod for the last 10 years. However, Uranus comes through and it's so dang slow that it's like back and forth over this apex. And what energy you've been putting into it completely changes. It doesn't go away, it just changes, it morphs into something else that is equally useful and amazing, and you feel good about it and all that stuff, but it's something that you didn't expect. It's something drastically changing about that. Then there's Neptune that comes through. I always like to describe Neptune transits as taking your words away. So as Neptune crosses something, it takes your words away and it moves you into a place of embodiment. As it moves off of it, you not only take with you that sense of embodiment and, deep soul knowledge of it, but you also get your words back. So you're able to describe it in a way that you never had before. And so when it takes your words away, it's kind of this feeling of confusion and mysticism and all these words that are associated with Neptune transits. However, when it moves off of it, you not only have that spiritual connection to it because of the Neptune transit, but you get your words back. So all of that confusion and like, I know what it is, I just don't know how to describe it, all of that comes together and you're able to have both parts. when Pluto comes through. Pluto is another one that is just going to be back and forth and back and forth. Might cross your apex 5, 7 times, who knows? However, that is going to be this deep psychological transformation when it comes to that apex. And so that focal point that you've been looking at for years, that you definitely want to dive into and cultivate and fulfill this destiny point, it's going to start taking that apart. It's going to break all of that down and build it up new. So it might be the type of thing where you've been putting this energy into it for so many years, and then you see where your good intentions may have had bad outcomes. And so you're able to look at this, one step at a time with this Pluto transit, where your energy becomes more focused. You're able to get this deconstruction and then reconstruction of this apex, where you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are doing the right thing. You are moving in the right direction, whereas before it could have been cloudy or clumsy or something like that. So that is another thing. So when it comes to what planet is specifically transiting that apex, just think of it as like the different questions that the planet would ask. Those are the things that you wrestle with during those specific activations. Also, the slower the transit, the heavier it's going to feel. So when it comes to the moon every month, you barely are going to notice that one just because it's every single month and it's so fast moving. So it really might only be on that degree or even within orb for like a few hours out of the day, out of every month. And you might even sleep through it most months. So I've only talked about conjunctions so far. What does it look like with an opposition or a trine or a square or even a sextile? So Rick Levine has this really great way of describing it. Every time you divide a circle, the energy gets weaker. So if something is conjunct, that circle is still whole because it's conjunct to the same spot. If something is opposing, that is the circle cut in half. So it's half the energy. If you're looking at a square, that's cut into 4 pieces. If you're looking at a trine, that's cut into 3 pieces. And a sextile, it's going to be cut into 6 pieces. And so the more times you divide a circle, the less the energy is going to be. So I have noticed in my own life with my own yods, the conjunctions I feel very strongly. The oppositions I can also feel if it's a slower moving planet. So I'm not going to notice a Mercury or a Sun opposition, but a Jupiter or a Saturn, I'm definitely noticing that as an opposition to my apex. When it comes to squares or trines, honestly, I haven't noticed them as much. However, depending on your sensitivity to energies, I know I have some clients who are like so sensitive, it really blows my mind, which is just so absolutely fascinating to me because I love hearing them talk because they're so sensitive to all the energies being moved around in their chart at any point in time. So that might be something that you can just kind of look at and journal through, where you're like, okay, right now I have Saturn that is squaring the apex of my yod. What is happening? What is coming up for me psychologically? How are these things looking for me? So I hope that makes sense when it comes to yod activations and how they look for you. Specifically with a finger of God or a traditional yod, since they're so psychological in nature, the activation is also going to be psychological. So there might be an external circumstance that sets off this psychological storm of paying attention to this yod for the first time in maybe 5 years or something like that. However, it's going to be more of an internal conflict where you're like, okay, how can I put energy into this? How can I move my life around to be able to move forward in this place that I really feel like I'm really called to fulfill or progress in? So I hope that makes sense. I hope it is more clear now. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to answer as many as I can. I am also starting consultations again for the year, so if you are interested in that, just go ahead and email me and let me know and I can put you on my wait list. Hopefully by the end of the year I'll be able to eat through my entire wait list and go back to the scheduling that I had on my website before. However, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but if you would like to have a consultation with me and have me take a look at your chart, just email me and let me know. Well, best of luck to you guys and take care.